Not trying to be in there, not trying to be cool, just trying to be in this. Tell me, are you too? Can you feel where the wind is? Can you feel it through all of the windows inside this room? 'Cause I wanna touch you, babe, and I wanna feel you too.
Hey y'all, so as promised, we are doing a bandeau and a high-waisted underwear. For your materials, you are going to need half a yard of your swimsuit fabric, a ringlet, which is for bags, you'll find it in the bag section of the fabric store. You're going to need matching thread. I decided to use black, and then you will need half a yard of your lining. As always, the pattern is down in the description box, and you are going to need to cut out your size. I'm going to be using size small on these two pattern pieces and size small on the bandeau top. Also, I will have a regular bandeau top and a one shoulder bandeau top tutorial on my website, so you're going to need to sign up for my notifications for my website and subscribe on there so you get notified for that blog post that I will be making this week. So moving on to the tutorial, these are all your fabric pieces that you have. You need to cut out 2 of your fabric, 2 of your lining, 1 of the backs, 1 of the linings for your bandeau top. And then for the bandeau bottoms, you just need to cut out 1 fabric piece for each piece, 1 for the lining, 1 for the fabric, same thing for the back. So we're going to start working on the top first. I'm grabbing my swimsuit fabric, and I am just going to place the 2 front pieces on top of my back piece, right sides together, and I will be pinning it on the side seams at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And this is what it looks like right now, how you should be placing your fabric pieces. And then I'm going to repeat these same steps for the lining pieces that are going to be on the inside of this bandeau top. Again, I'm going to have a regular bandeau top and a one shoulder bandeau top tutorial on my blog that I will leave in the description box. I'll be posting that this week. If you just wanted a basic bandeau, I will be showing you step-by-steps on how to do that one. But yeah, I wanted to make something a little different on YouTube, so that's why we're using the circle in the middle, the little metal hoop. But yeah, the basic tutorial, it will be on my website, so be sure to subscribe onto my website. Okay, after pinning, you should look like this, and you will need to sew this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I would suggest doing a straight stitch and make sure that you pull your fabric as you're sewing. But on this tutorial right now, I'm going to be doing a zigzag stitch. On my machine, my zigzag stitch isn't that strong, but if yours works, then you can use that. Yeah, so we're just sewing that at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And your stitching should look something like this. Here's a really good close-up of my zigzag stitch. Mine's isn't that tight, so if you're having that issue, use a straight stitch and pull your fabric as you're sewing so that it can stretch. Okay, so next we're just going to open it up, and we're going to put right sides together of your fashion fabric and of your lining, and then we will be pinning all the way around, leaving one section open so that you can turn this right side out. But we're just going to pin along the edges because we're going to sew that at a 1/2 inch seam allowance too. Okay, so after pinning, your pin should look like this on your bandeau top. And as you can see, I left a little section right there open. Do not sew that part. You need that on the next step. So I'm just going to sew that at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You can do a zigzag stitch, you can do a straight stitch, and pull your fabric towards you. Whatever your preference is, that's what you should do. Okay, so now this is what the bandeau top looks like. There's the section, well, there's the section where I left the opening. I'm just going to take out my pins, and we're just going to turn it right side out. Make sure that you pull your corners out really good so that it's pointed and not like embedded in there looking like a curve. It should look like a point. Alright, so for that section that we left open, we are just going to make sure our fabric is laying down flat, and we're going to pin down that little section that we left open, and we're just going to sew that as close to the edge as possible, making sure that you catch both sides. It's going to be like a little tiny baby stitch, nothing too serious. We just need to close that hole. Okay, and this is what the stitching looks like, super close to the edge. I think that's about 1/8 of a stitch. As long as you're catching both your fabrics, it doesn't really matter because you're not going to see the seam. Alright, so now we're just going to lay out our fabric flat, and you will just be pinning down your side seams, making sure that your fabric, your lining isn't showing on the front side. That's what I'm doing right now, and I'm just pinning all the way around the entire bandeau top, and then we will be sewing that down like 1/8 of a stitch, 1/4 of a stitch, all the way around. You just really need it as like a top stitching so your fabric doesn't roll, if that makes sense. While I'm sewing this, I am doing a straight stitch, and I am pulling my fabric as I'm sewing. I'm pulling it on both sides, at the top and the bottom. This is so that my fabric is going to stretch when it's actually on my body. If you do not stretch your fabric while you're sewing, then your strings will pop and you have wasted all your time sewing this bandeau top. And this bandeau top goes by really fast. It's a really quick sew, so do it right the first time. Okay, so I'm just cutting off my threads right now, and then I'm going to demonstrate to you what I mean by making sure your fabric stretches. This is my stitching. It's really, really small, but when I stretch my fabric, it's still stretching. Next, you're going to need to grab one of your little loops, and I'm just going to take mine out of the package, nothing special. I only need one loop. So here's my loop, and then I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to slide some of it on the edge around my loop. And I think I'm about to give you a close-up of what I'm doing. You only need to pin like 1/2 inch of your fabric around the loop and just pin it down. Just look what I'm doing on my demonstration, really. Okay, so after pinning, you will need to sew this down, I would say as close to the loop as possible. And while you're sewing it, make sure you're scrunching up your fabric like how I am doing right now. Scrunch it up and sew it down like that, because you need to be able to see some of your gold loop when you're actually wearing it. So you need to make sure that it's bunched up together while you're sewing, and it's pretty easy. You just put your sewing machine foot along the little gold loop and it'll work out fine. I didn't really have any problems doing this, and you shouldn't either, because it's really easy. And this is what it's going to look like, and then you'll just need to repeat that same step on the other side of your bandeau top. So this is going to be super speedy because it's kind of self-explanatory, you know. And I would rate this bandeau top like a 2 out of a 10 on the easy scale. Like, it's really, really simple. You probably can do this whole thing by hand, honestly. Alright, so the bandeau top is finished right now. This is what it's going to look like. We're going to put that to the side, and we're going to start working on our bottoms. So these are the bottom pieces. That's the front, this is the back, and then this is my lining front and my lining back. And we're going to place your fashion fabric right sides together and pin it down at the crotch. And on your pattern, it will tell you what side's the crotch and what's not. So I'm just going to pin it down at my crotch, and then I'm going to pin it down on the side seams in a bit. So your pinning should look something like this when you get to this step. And you will just sew that down at a 1/2 inch seam allowance using a zigzag stitch or a straight stitch. I decided to use a straight stitch on mine, and for whatever reason my camera didn't record me sewing this part, so I'm sorry you guys, but this is what the sewing should look like on your fabric at those side seams and those crotch seams. And then your lining should look like this. For the bottoms, we will be making this part reversible. It's probably the easiest technique that I can show you guys without getting super complicated, because I want this tutorial to be easy, you know. So this is what you're gonna have to do. You are going to need to take your front underwear with your fashion fabric and place it right side out. And then you will need to take your lining and place it wrong side out and place it inside your fabric like I'm showing you right now. So all of your seams are going to be sandwiched together, and then we will be pinning down our leg holes and our waist shortly. Yeah, right here. So I'm just going to be pinning this down at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to be showing you guys with the measuring tape, not my ruler. You guys can barely read the ruler, but with my measuring tape, I'm just going to fold over at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I will continue folding over a 1/2 inch seam allowance around the entire leg, and you will do the same thing for the lining, and you just pin it together right where you're folding. And you just do that for the entire leg hole like I'm showing you right now. And yeah, I put this part slow because a lot of you guys get confused on these types of parts of my videos. So yeah, just fold over a 1/2 inch seam allowance on your fashion fabric, fold over on your lining, and then sandwich them together and pin it. Okay, so after you're done pinning, it will look like this. I folded over all my seam allowance and pinned it down, and then I will be sewing this on the edge at like a 1/4 or 1/8 of a seam allowance, and I'm going to use a straight stitch. And while I'm sewing it, I will be pulling my fabric. And you just do that for both the legs and your waistband, and then your underwear are complete. So for that portion, the longest thing that it's going to take you is the pinning down and folding over your seam allowance, but your underwear are done right now, and this is what mine looks like. My high-waisted bikini bottoms, swimsuit bottoms, and my bandeau top. And just to be extra, I decided to put on my clothing labels. So I'm pinning that down, and I'm just sewing it down right now because I want to look a little professional, you know. Would anybody be interested in buying these swimsuits that I make? Leave a comment down below if you would, because I have nothing to do all summer, so I can just make bikinis and stuff for people. Whatever your color request or anything like that, I can do it custom for you. But yeah, this is what my pants look like with my sewing labels on it. And just because my boobs are not like a size cup A, an A cup, I decided to make me a little drawstring so that I can tie it around my neck so I can have some more support. Because I personally, on me, don't like how bandeau looks on me, but to each his own. But yeah, you guys, this is the tutorial. Please leave a comment down below if you think this is possible for you to make. Leave any requests that you want for the swimsuits down below in my comment box, of course. Check out the description box for my website link and for the pattern link for this tutorial, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!